The roster moves the Raiders make on Tuesday opened up the door for a player to return to the active roster. We'll tell you who and how, plus more, coming up on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for November 19th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now your number one sports podcast network. We're really proud of that. We're also really proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support, even in a season where the Raiders are 2-8, and it does not look very good through 10 games in 11 weeks. You still show up to the show each and every day. So whether you're catching it wherever you find your favorite podcast or on the YouTube page, thank you. We appreciate that. We also appreciate my man Ari, who does a great job behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good by way of the YouTube page. You can find him on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. Of course, we'll hear from you as we close out the show. Calls, texts, all that coming up. Segment number 3, really good feedback that we've been getting, as you can imagine. Not really necessarily the most pleasant subjects, but really good feedback because, well, we always love to hear from Raider Nation. We'll do that coming up in segment number 3. Segment number 2, NFL insider Ari Meirov, 33team.com. He was actually on my radio show last week and talked about the Raiders and what he's hearing from the national point of view and gave us just a couple minutes. Well, on his NFL Spotlight show, he actually went into great detail, really went over great detail about just about every team across the league. Did a fantastic job. But deep detail when it came to the Raiders, what he's expecting between John Spytek, head coach Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, and others, right? What kind of dynamic he thinks is going to happen with this team now and moving forward into the offseason. So we'll let you hear from him. I'll give you my thoughts on that. We'll do that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day. And it really has to do with opening up roster spots. We'll tell you about that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So it's funny, we've been talking about quarterbacks quite a bit, obviously with what Geno Smith has got going on. There's been some Raider Nation that's been calling and saying, hey, I want to see what Kenny Pickett is going to do. And then there's others saying, hey, what about Aiden O'Connell? Is there a chance that he's going to return sooner rather than later since his 21-day practice window has been open? The Raiders have to make a decision sooner rather than later. And I said, I believe on Monday's show that, at some point, they're going to have to make a decision this week, and we'd actually get a chance to talk to head coach Pete Carroll about that after the game. As a matter of fact, we did that on Tuesday when we met with him, and he said that he's been practicing. He actually went up against some of the ones. He's been practicing in full, and so it kind of let us know that there's thoughts of getting him back onto that active roster, so they have to clear some space. Well, on Tuesday, lo and behold, after we talked to Coach Carroll, the Raiders made some space. They waived safety Chris Smith II. That's from the 53-man roster. And then they released tackle Leroy Watson IV from the practice squad. So what does that mean? What does that have to do with Aiden O'Connell, you're asking? Well, waiving Chris Smith opens up a roster spot on the 53-man roster for Aiden to return. And again, they have to make that decision this week. It sounds like, especially since he's practicing against the ones at times, that they want to do that. Releasing Watson from the practice squad clears up that practice squad spot so Chris Smith II can return and land on the practice squad. So you're not losing him completely as long as he clears waivers. And I don't think there's anything that Chris Smith has done so far in his NFL career to make me think that a team is going to pick him up off waivers. But, of course, he's a young guy in the league, so he still has to go through the proper process. But more likely than not, you'll see coming up sometime maybe later on today, maybe early on Thursday, you'll see that Chris Smith has been added back to the Raiders practice squad. And I do believe probably later on today, matter of fact, maybe while you're listening to us, maybe the news has already popped out that Aiden O'Connell is back on the 53-man roster. But I do believe that that's going to happen. Now, what that really means to me is, especially when Pete Carroll says that, he's had some runs with the ones against the runs, tells me really what they believe about Kenny Pickett, that they don't really trust and believe that he's going to do too much of anything, and that if any move is made from Geno Smith, and I'm not saying at all that there's going to be a move made off of Geno Smith anytime soon, that they would give the nod to Aiden O'Connell as opposed to giving the nod to Kenny Pickett. But I know a lot of people have been wondering, is there a chance that he comes back? Is there a chance that Geno gets benched? And if he does, who would be the guy to take over? It sounds to me, again, just gut feeling, just listening to Pete Carroll and seeing the roster moves that are being made, they would make a move to Aiden O'Connell sooner rather than later. So we'll have to obviously pay attention to that and see how it all plays out. I did want to pass this little nugget along as well. This comes from Josh DeBow from the AP. And, whenever he tweets something out about the Raiders, it's never a good thing. And this is definitely not a good thing. We talked a lot on Tuesday's show following the game about trying to make sense of things that don't make sense. How about this? And I mentioned it on the show on Tuesday, as a matter of fact, about, people asking me, is this team better than last year's team? Are they in the same place as they were last year? And it's funny, as much that changes, a lot still remains the same. And this tweet has everything to do with that. The Raiders were 2-8 and outscored by 98 points through 10 games last season. That's under head coach Antonio Pierce. And currently, the Raiders are 2-8, and you guessed it, been outscored by 98 points this season under head coach Pete Carroll. Now, I'm not at all trying to say that both coaches are on the same level. We all know that Antonio Pierce was very inexperienced, didn't really know what he was doing, was trying to figure it out while he went along. Pete Carroll is very seasoned, right? He's obviously had a great resume of success. He's going to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. But you are who you are. You're 2-8 through 10 games. Both teams, 2-8 through 10 games. Both teams have been outscored by 98 points. So as much as the Raiders have put a lot into this coaching staff, they've obviously invested a lot of money when it comes to Chip Kelly. They went out and got a quarterback that they believed in. They went out and drafted a running back that they thought was going to do some heavy lifting. The same problems and the same issues that they had in 2024, trying to score and trying to stop their opponents from scoring. It comes up and shows its ugly head once again. So thought that was interesting to pass along. Again, not trying to say the two coaches on the same level, but right now the results have been the same. Final soundbite that I want you to have here in segment number 1 before we get into what Ari Mayroff from 33team.com had to say about the Raiders and the organization moving forward. Coming up in segment number 2 was a soundbite from what Pete Carroll had to say at his press conference on Tuesday. And Vinny Bonsignore asked about Jack Bech. Jack Bech only had 9 offensive snaps. 9 offensive snaps on Monday Night Football, and he had 1 target. And the 1 target was a catch, and he went for 19 yards. And then they decided to never go back to him again. So here's Vinny Bonsignore asking about Jack Bech, and I had a follow-up as well.
9 snaps for Jack Bech and just 1 target between he and Dante Thornton. Is that just the product of how the game played out? Are guys getting open, or are they being?
They had their concepts. That they were carrying out. A couple like the one Jack caught was one that we had done all week long. We kind of felt really good about that, and they hit it perfectly, just like we'd practiced it. But he was in the plan too, but the balls just didn't go that way.
Is there anything he has to do to get more snaps? I mean, forget targets, just get more snaps, get more opportunity on the field.
If you notice, we played a lot of tight ends. We played a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, and that takes away from the receivers. And so that's why we even went to 4 receivers in the game plan this week. We were able to do that. So it just cuts in on their opportunities is what happens. So they got to make the most of the ones they get.
So to me, when you hear Pete Carroll say that Jack Bech got the 1 target and he ran it just like they drew it up in practice, he ran it perfectly. To me, that would signal that he's going to get more opportunity because, when he was out there, he did it right. I don't understand why he only got 9 offensive snaps. Tyler Lockett had 28 offensive snaps out of the Raiders' 58. Dante Thornton Jr., 23 offensive snaps and no targets out of the 58. Trey Tucker, 58 offensive snaps. But Jack Bech only getting 9, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, we've talked about it in great detail. I even talked about it on my radio show on Tuesday, trying to make sense out of something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So what are the Raiders going to do? What is this organization going to do? I don't believe everyone's going to be back in 2026. I don't believe after this season is over, everyone's just going to run it back and say, hey, this is going really well. Let's run it back. What does Ari Mayroff from 33team.com, what does he think? He talked about it on his NFL Spotlight show. You'll hear that next.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs. With features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance, you can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we jump into it, definitely want to thank you for making this the first listen of the day. You know we appreciate that in a major way. And, of course, the podcast network in general, the #1 sports podcast network. So shout out to the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to you, Raider Nation, and all the fans that are listening to the network. I did want to get into the conversation of what Ari Mayroff from the 33team.com had to say about the Raiders and potentially their power struggle when it comes to the GM, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, maybe even the defensive coordinator. As I've said many times, I don't believe everyone is on the same page, and that is the national narrative. Here's what Ari Mayroff on the NFL Spotlight Show had to say.
Front office, I think everyone is safe. That's from John Spytek to all the great people that he hired this offseason. I think they want to build this the right way. The coaching staff, that's one where we'll be watching very closely. They already fired the special teams coordinator last week, and now there are questions over here around the NFL about head coach Pete Carroll, offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. Those are the two that kind of are watching here. And it's like, do we blow it up and just fire everybody, or do we just change some of the staffing over here? Because we tried to put together a staff that Pete had no familiarity with some of the coordinators here, but they made the most sense, and we're going to pay them a lot of money, and it's all going to work out. They tried to put all this together on the fly and hope everyone would mesh, and it just hasn't meshed. And the reason I bring up the coaching staff and I don't bring up the front office here is because it feels like, first of all, the front office and what they've done, that was something that when they hired John Spytek, Tom Brady, first of all, was very, very involved in that. But they've also really modernized the front office. They brought in a lot of different scouts from a bunch of different buildings, from Denver, from Philadelphia. Like, they want to build this thing and try to get a sustained winner and build it from the ground up. The problem was when they hired Pete Carroll to be the head coach. When you're hiring a head coach who is in his mid-70s and he doesn't have time for rebuilds here, it becomes hard to do the vision of the coaching staff and the front office together. And we kind of have seen that throughout the course of this year. Jamal Adams has been a good player for the team, but Jamal Adams on a losing team, I don't know if he's somebody who really belongs on the field much. You look at players like Tyler Lockett, who they signed recently. You look like a player at Amari Cooper, they tried to sign before the year. From a front office perspective, they wanted to give chances to some young guys on this team, some guys who they signed as undrafted free agents. They decided to cut some of those players because they had to make room for the Amari Coopers and Tyler Lockett's and those type of players of the world that Pete Carroll wanted. So I think Mark Davis and I think Tom Brady and I think all these other limited partners that they brought in last year, who brought in a lot of cash, which they put back into the organization, and they're paying Chip Kelly $6 million per year. That is all going to be a discussion over here when they realize that the Broncos are like this, and the Chiefs, even though they're 5-5, are still way above us. And the Chargers, who have had a lot of injuries, already have 7 wins of the year. We're nowhere close to them. And I think that's going to be a discussion in Las Vegas after this year, because they have to figure out which direction they want to go in. And I feel like they decided we're going to rebuild on the fly and try to win now. And I think they realized early on, like, they won week 1 versus the Patriots. The second half of that game for Geno Smith was the best football he's played all year. But aside from that, there was one big Brock Bowers game when he came back, but this team has just not looked like a team that could actually compete over here moving forward this season the way they thought they could. So that's why I think there's going to be a discussion in Las Vegas. And the question is going to become, do we blow up the entire coaching staff, or do we just blow up some of the coordinators here and let Pete pick some of his own guys? But meanwhile, let this thing, let the front office do their thing. Because I felt just the feeling, the sense that I get, Ben, front office, coaching staff, it's not eye to eye right now. It's just not. It's just not. That's a problem. And I mean, let's make this clear. Every team has that. Every coach is thinking about the here and now, and every GM is thinking about the here and now, but also next year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. When you're talking about a 74-year-old head coach, that's a whole different ballgame because he doesn't have that much time over here. So that dichotomy has been fascinating to follow all year. And I think something is going to happen at the end of the year. I just don't know what it is yet, but something's going to happen there with the coaching staff.
So there's Ari Mayrov, 33rdteam.com. He's a frequent guest on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920. And again, it didn't take me long to be able to identify that everybody's not on the same page. Just like we talked about on Tuesday's show, right? Upstairs is not on the same page as downstairs, right? The GM and the head coach are on two different timelines. And that's a big problem, being on two different timelines. Look, John Spytek has what, a 5-year contract as the GM of the Silver and Black, where Pete Carroll has a 3-year deal with a 4th-year team option, right? That already lets you know that the timelines aren't aligned. Then you've got Geno Smith on what, a 3-year contract, 2 years. After the second year, after 2026, they can get out of the deal with no money, no dead cap money, no money guaranteed, right? I mean, just it doesn't seem like they're all aligned. And I made this example on my radio show on Tuesday, is the fact that as much as I don't love giving props to the San Francisco 49ers, I have to. Because when GM John Lynch came in and Kyle Shanahan came in, they came in together, right? They all came in at the same time. Their contracts were the exact same length, right? So they got hired together. They almost got fired together. Remember when they had the whole debacle when they traded up for Trey Lance and they completely whiffed on that? They almost got fired together. But then they got saved together by the drafting of Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, when they got him. And all of a sudden they're back in business. So then they've been extended together. So their timelines are always in lockstep. And as you heard Ari Mayrov talk about, every team, has a GM that wants to see what else they're going to do for the future. And then a head coach that's, also want to win right now, but they're not such a difference like this one is. Right. And I thought that when they were hired together, John Spytek and Pete Carroll, they were going to be able to really be aligned and understand each other. And John Spytek was going to be there to help Pete Carroll get what he needed, while they were trying to win right now, with the understanding of they have to build for the future. But it seems like the more that we watch these games, the more we hear Pete Carroll, it's like, no, it's all about win, 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 win right now. And I don't really care what's going on in the future. And that's because we know he's not long for the team. So what do they do moving forward? How do they work on this power struggle even into the offseason, right? Because if you remember Pete Carroll in Seattle, what did he have? He had the final say. That was part of the reason why they moved on from him, because they wanted their GM, John Schneider, to have the final say. Well, here, none of us know who really truly has the final say, right? Is it John Spytek, the GM? Is it Pete Carroll, the head coach? Is it Tom Brady, part of the minority ownership? Is it Mark Davis? Like, nobody knows who's calling the shots. Like, I could not tell you right now with a straight face. If you're watching me on YouTube, I'm looking dead into the camera. I could not tell you with a straight face who's making the final decision when it comes to the Raiders. When I look at some of the personnel, like Tyler Lockett, Amari Cooper, seeing guys like, Brock Bowers and others playing late into the game on Monday Night Football when the game is already a wash, right? They're down 17 with, a handful of minutes left. You can have young guys out there like Dante Thornton getting a lot of burn. You can have guys like Jack Besh out there getting a lot of burn. You can have other guys out there. To me, that's a Pete Carroll decision. But what about the roster, right? What about the roster and the way that it's being put together right now, right? Is that John Spytek? Ashton Genty, that felt like a Pete Carroll draft pick, right? Because he wants to have a really strong running game, even though they haven't had a really strong running game, right? And then you wonder, okay, who decided that the offensive line was pretty good as it was constructed, outside of bringing in Alex Kappa to help out with some depth, right? I mean, it just seems like there's a huge power struggle, and something has to come to a head. They've got to decide who's going to be calling what. It also looks like to me, and I know Pete Carroll has died on the hill of he really was deep into that game plan for Monday Night Football. To me, it almost felt like Chip Kelly's just doing his thing. Hey, man, I don't really have to listen to you. You're not really the boss, right? I mean, and again, this is just speculation, but that's just how it feels, and it just sounds like there's a lot of people that feel the same way when it comes to the power struggle of the Silver and Black. But what's on your mind? What do you think? Your calls and texts will close out the show. 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. The NBA is back. There is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And there's some really good action early in the season. It's so funny. I got caught up saying that I wasn't going to be focusing on the NBA till, December around Christmas when everyone really focuses when they have the big showcase of games. But man, there's been some great action. There's some great young players. I know there's some guys that are getting banged up right now, but the season is a long season, but man, it is fun. And then you see guys that aren't young players like Steph Curry still out there balling out of control, right? Breaking records every time he hits another three-pointer. It is fantastic. So regardless, if you're missing the start of the game, you want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who'll score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So go to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. How about Phil Boy Raider from Richmond, California? He's calling to talk about the game. He's so disappointed. You can hear it in his voice. Talks about the offensive game plan, Geno Smith, and more. Here's Phil Boy Raider from Richmond.
Hey, yo, Q, what's up, man? Phil Boy Raider out the 510, Richmond, California. Man, just finished watching the game, man. I don't even know what to say. Like, why do I even get ready to watch the game? I'm excited and hopeful, and of course the Raiders always let us down, man. It's just, I don't know, man. What can we do? I mean, Chip Kelly only ran the ball in the first half, 2-3 times? Like, come on, man. We got a number 6 pick for Ashton Genty, and we only going to give him the ball 3 times in the first half. I know our O-line sucks, but it's ridiculous, man. It's really ridiculous. And Geno, man. Geno, I get we don't got a good O-line. O-line is bad, but he holds the ball for too long, man. I'm not even a QB. I'm like, get rid of it, take off, do something. He's standing there. It's like, man, just get rid of the ball, man. But I don't know, man. I was really hopeful for the game. Got some family members that are Dallas Cowboys fan. Would have been nice to at least get that under our belt, but this is, how can we get worse from last year? And, I thought we would be a little bit better, but I guess not. The Raiders got a funny thing they do. They always make, QBs look elite, and our defense can't stop nothing, man. Our defense can't stop nothing. And then our offense makes, Dallas is like one of the worst, defense in the league, and they shut us down. Kaiju Blue Kelly, man, cut him. Get rid of him. He's getting burnt all the time, man. We should have kept, man, I forget his name, man. The guy that we sent out to Philadelphia for Booker, man. We should have kept him, man. Our DB is not it, man. It's just, I don't know, Q, man. Very frustrating. But, yeah, man, thanks for what you do. And, hey, Raider Nation, hey, there's nothing new, right? All right. Phil Boy out.
Phil Boy, thanks so much for the call. And look, I do think the game plan, if that was the game plan, was very flawed. It was all bad, right? I get it that the play action pass worked early for a few plays, probably about 5, but there was just no effort at all to try to run the ball. And I know you've got to be able to block to be able to run the ball, but man, at some point, Geno Smith is skittish back there. He's a guy that, every time he calls a pass play, he's got to feel like, oh, here I go again. Right, he's not going to let a play develop just because he's trying to get the ball out of his hands. But then he's all tunnel vision on Brock Bowers. It's like it's such a, it's almost a power struggle within himself. I got to get the ball to Brock. That's the guy I want to get to. But then at the same time, I need to get this ball in my hands because my protection is not going to hold up. It is wild. They made the Cowboys defense look really good, and I don't think the Cowboys defense, even after the addition of Quentin Williams, even after the addition of the linebacker that they picked up from Cincinnati, I don't think that they are that much better. But that's just me. Thanks so much for the call. Do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Mountaineer Raider. What's up, Q? Hope all is well. Yet another poor performance from the Raiders. I wasn't able to watch or listen to the game, so I'm really just getting my info from the box score here. But it just appears as if no one in the organization is on the same page. Showing with only 6 carries is mind-blowing to me. Starting with only 6 carries, I guess, is mind-blowing to me. And don't get me started on Pete's refusal to give any rookies playing time. I know Pete wants to win, but we're in full-blown rebuild mode, and I don't know how he can't see that. I'm not sure how the chain of command works, but is Spytek able to step up and just say, this is what we're doing going forward, and this is what we need to do, and force Pete's hand into playing our rookies? This is frustrating. It's almost been 25 years. I'm okay with another losing season or two if we commit to a rebuild and do it right. Love the show, Q. Thanks all that you do. That's Mountaineer Raider. Really goes into what we were talking about and what Ari Mayrod from 3013.com was talking about in segment number 2. And I do believe that there's a power struggle between Spytek and Pete Carroll. I really feel like Caleb Rogers not even dressing on Monday was really kind of a Pete Carroll way of telling John Spytek, I'm doing things my way. I'm doing things my way. You can bring these guys in, but I ain't got to play them. I don't even have to dress them. Matter of fact, he's not going to play, right? I mean, you bring up Mafi from the practice squad when you have a guy in Caleb Rogers that was your 3rd-round pick. Like, you are telling me, and I know I got on this soapbox on Tuesday's show, but you're telling me that your 3rd-round picks in your mind are not some of the top 100 players that were in this past year's draft, because that's where they were selected, top 100. So you're telling me that those top 100 picks are not able to even dress and be on the field in case of emergency, or be out there in case of emergency. Charles Grant, we always knew was going to be, a project, right? He came from William & Mary. You just kind of knew that it was going to take a little bit longer to develop. But Caleb Rogers, the thing about him was, he's got plenty of burn at Texas Tech, right? He's had 4 or 5 years of burn there. He's about as ready to play as anyone. And so to hear rumors and see, tweets, I saw one from Ted Wynn from The Athletic, who does a great job, who basically said that the Raiders planned on playing Caleb Rogers, but they didn't play him because some reason he was so bad in practice. Like, to me, it almost feels like a cop-out and get out of jail free pass. I'm not necessarily buying what's being sold. So yeah, it's a problem, and you're spot on about the power struggle. There's no doubt about that. Up next, got a call from Darren in the 203. He's calling to talk about Geno Smith and some of the comments he made Monday night, and he's pretty fed up about it. Here's Darren in the 203.
Hey, Q, it's Darren from the 203. We're going back and forth, and I wanted to bring in this call. It's been something that's been frustrating me, and it's frustrating me for a lot of the season, and I think last night it's just kind of like a ridiculous catalyst for this frustration. And I'm trying not to be arrogant, right? But Geno Smith needs to take accountability. I don't quite understand how you are an NFL quarterback a decade into the league and you do not take accountability. I genuinely don't get it. Like, the comments that he made that really are making me bring this up is put it all on me. And then he goes on to say, what, like, if you had a bad day at work, if your kid did bad at school, or a kid missed the bus, it's my fault. But, like, that wouldn't tick me off if he wasn't in the leading or, like, top 3 for interceptions, if he had more touchdowns than interceptions, if he isn't throwing it into double coverage every other pass, it feels, if he's not missing wide open guys to take deep shots on 1st and 10, like, I'm thinking it's one of the rollout play action passes that the Raiders were like spamming throughout the night. He had Bowers in the flat, or it might have been Mayer, but it was one of them in the flat, 2 yards in front of him. Throws to them, they get a 5 to however many yard gain, so he throws to Trey Tucker and almost throws Malik Hooker an interception. So it's just frustrating to hear this, like, I don't even, like, just a lack of accountability. Not every interception he's thrown has been his fault. There have been some that have been tipped to the line, miscommunication, whatever it may be, sure. But the vast majority are bad decisions. Period. Right? So this whole, like, stance he's taking regarding his performance and the frustration toward him is really irritating toward me, because it's the type of thing where if you were doing well, right, and if it was just the offensive line and we just didn't have time, if you weren't holding onto the ball too long when it needs to get thrown, if you were making good reads, okay, saying that comment doesn't get me irritated because you're being a leader, right? Saying it in this position with his production, that's not being a leader. It's not. It's avoiding accountability. You're not, like, it's I don't know. I didn't actually listen to it because I read the script, right, the transcript from someone who quoted it. So I don't know if his tone was sarcastic, but reading it on paper or on Twitter, I guess, it screams sarcasm, and it really ticked me off. So I just using the line as a vent. Appreciate you. Have a good day.
Darren, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, the put it all on me. I think it was fine from a quarterback position just to say, hey, you know, I didn't get it done. That's on me. That shows leadership to me. But you're right. When he started talking about the kids in school, the car breaking down on the way, whatever, and put that on me, then it's like, okay, woe is me. Everything is on me. It's all my fault. Oh man, you know, it's what it like. You know what I mean? Like it all of a sudden became very smart aleck, you know, response, and really just one of those where I'm just gonna go up there and, you know, just, oh, hey, it's all my fault, because he's on social media, he's listening to the radio, he's listening to podcasts, he's hearing people criticize him, and he's like, oh, yeah, it's all me. It's all Gino's fault. Gino can't block, Gino can't run, Gino can't throw, Gino can't this, Gino can't coach. You know, like that's the impression that I got when I heard that. So, again, initially I thought it was okay, and then he went to the part about kids and the car, and then it was just really, especially the look he had on his face. But since you didn't actually hear it and you are just reading it, this is actually what he had to say. I believe he was responding to Hondo Carpenter's question about not converting in the red zone, something like that, but it led to this.
Like I said, the plays were there. I don't think there was any issue with the play calling. The plays were there. Guys were open. You know, you guys watch the film. I know we got a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks who like to watch film and take screenshots and see where guys are open. So I'm sure you guys will see where the guys were open. For me, again, I just got to play better. And I keep saying this, man. If something don't look right out there, blame it on me, right? If it don't look right, blame it on me. That's all you can do. Blame it on me. If your kids mess up at school, blame it on me. Car breakdown going to work, blame it on me.
So there you go. That was Gino, the blame it on me. And I, again, wasn't a big fan of what he had to say there. I just thought it was more of a, you know, a cop-out, him being a smart aleck, and, oh, woe is me. You guys all hate me because I'm just so terrible. Oh, man. You know what I mean? It's you know, talking about people screenshotting stuff on social media, just whatever. It was what it was. But, I mean, he's frustrated like everyone else is frustrated. So I guess that's that. We'll close out with a text from Raider D in the 408. He says, hey, Q, how's it going? It's Raider D in the 408, first-time texter, long-time listener. Wanted to reach out and say thank you so much for all the work that you and Ari put into the show. Doing a great job. I love the content. The only thing I would say about this season is that it sucks. I'm surrounded by Niner fans 24/7. I just wish that the Raiders would back up all my trash talk. LOL. But anyways, man, appreciation text. Keep putting in the work. Appreciate you and your in-depth information you provide. Raider D out. Raiders. That's from Raider D in the 408. First-time texter. Definitely appreciate the text, my man. Myself and Ari take a lot of pride in what we do and do appreciate the fact that you enjoy the show. So, you know, the Raiders, they got to do their part, right? We've got a commitment to excellence. We're trying to just win, baby, here on the pod, trying to do it each and every day. Now we're going to need the Raiders to do, as you mentioned, back it up for us as well. Give us something positive to talk about. But thanks so much for that text. We do appreciate you. Coming up tomorrow, it is a short week, so we'll already have the crossover edition. Yeah, it'll already be Thursday tomorrow. That's wild. Getting ready for Sunday's game against the Cleveland Browns, and obviously one of the big storylines for them, and I'm sure for the Raiders as well, is will Shedeur or won't Shedeur play as a starting quarterback? Feels like he will, but we'll get into that on the crossover edition. And, of course, we'll close out the week really strong on Friday. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.